Hi, this video is a quick summary on common assessments. So first thing, why make common assessments? Why is admin asking us to do this? We can make higher quality products through a team effort, and we can use together all of the strengths of everybody on the team and come up with something better. We get to make sure that we are getting that guaranteed curriculum, because if everyone is saying, hey, we commit to taking this common assessment and using this in our classes, then we're more likely to focus on those essential standards and make sure those get taught. We have some reliable data that we can use to evaluate our instructional practices and also to figure out where the needs are of our students, and that will allow us to craft interventions. Common grading practices fit really well with common assessments. So if your PLC actually is really struggling with the idea of common grading practices, that might be an area where you start, and that could include having similar percentages for weights in your gradebook, having some similar grading policies that you can reference, and also how you actually grade the assessment in terms of points that you assign or reduce out. And we'll talk more about that up next. So there are three main types of common assessments that you might want to consider working on as a PLC. And a lot of this is your choice and as what you need and what you think is going to benefit your students. The first type would be the unit assessments. This is the primary focus for the year. So if you have no common assessments in your course, this is where you should start. Having a common scoring rubric would be really essential, because if you have the common assessments and you're scoring them really differently, that's going to completely throw off all of the data that you get, as well as cause some frustration with your students and perhaps some comparison between teachers that can become very unpleasant. The paths on how you get to the assessment can vary from teacher to teacher, but the assessments should be the same common assessment. Sometimes PLCs agree to have like a 10% portion of the assessment that maybe you vary from teacher to teacher on some of the non-essential topics, and that would be up to you. Formative assessments can be really helpful as well. This is ideal for item analysis. This would be something that would happen not at the end of the unit, not the unit assessment, but things that happen in the middle of the unit. It might be just one formative assessment. You might have a couple. This would be great to use the item analysis tool and to practice that. One kind of caveat with that, if you are using the item analysis, pick one, maybe two questions to analyze, and don't look at student data from your entire all of your students. You would want to pick some samples of some students who got it wrong and some who missed it, and so that you could actually have the time to do the process. Otherwise, you'll get discouraged. The formative assessments could allow you to design interventions before you get to the final assessment to really impact your students' learning and their grades. Pre-assessments are things that I think some of the PLCs are ready to work on. There can be a couple different types. One would be the daily just-in-time assessments, where maybe you spend 5-10 minutes at the beginning of a class. You target those really foundational skills that would stop a student from being able to access your lesson. It might be vocabulary, it might be just a really basic skill or recall, but something that you think would cause a student to not be able to access your lesson. And one strategy is to then, depending on the student results, provide an opportunity for them to quickly relearn that material. That might be through some practice where the kids say, hey, if I miss question one, I need to do this. It might even be a short 2-3 minute video that you direct them to. Another type of pre-assessment is one that's at the beginning of a unit. And this might be helpful if you are dealing with standards that maybe your unit only has 1 or 2 standards, but maybe they take a long time to develop, versus some content areas you have a lot of small standards and a lot of skills. The daily just-in-time work really well if you have a lot of smaller skills that build, versus a start of unit would work really well if you have fewer standards, but maybe take more time to develop. There are some resources to help you. You will get to choose how you spend your time on this. Again, if you've not made unit assessments, that's where you should start. If your unit assessments don't have a common grading rubric, that's another place you should start. But in your binder, pages 27 through 30 have some different tools. You don't have to use them if you don't find them to be helpful. Those pages are also listed on the Nearpoint. On Teams, under Files, you'll see a sample writing rubric, a sample math pre-assessment structure. And again, if you haven't done any common grading discussions, you might want to look at that. And I think I can add a couple things on Teams for you in there. So maybe you could get an idea of maybe some common grading things that maybe other departments are doing. So again, these are the tools. Don't feel like you have to use them. Use them if you want. So your job now would be to kind of think about what would be helpful for your students and you. Where would you like to gather information, and where you do want to start next? Let us know if you need any help.